Hello everybody. The year 2024 marked a new chapter in the history of India, a country long known for its religious and cultural diversity. However, this time, a wave of change came swiftly and unexpectedly, shaking the entire nation. The rise of Islam, which had previously only been visible in certain regions, began to spread throughout rural India. Islam, once seen as a minority religion, began to assert itself, captivating the hearts of millions who felt marginalized by the long-standing social system. At first, this rise appeared to be something small, almost like a temporary trend. But slowly, the movement grew at an astonishing pace. In major cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, and Kolkata, the voices of Islamic preaching began to echo through social media, spreading messages that touched people's hearts. Islam was not only seen as a religion but also as a solution to life's difficulties, the caste system, and the injustices that plagued many, particularly those from lower social classes. Young people in India, who felt oppressed by the deeply ingrained social system, began to search for deeper meaning in their lives. They saw in Islam not only a religion but a path to freedom, equality, and justice. Dawah campaigns, widely spread through platforms like WhatsApp, Instagram, and Twitter, introduced Islam in a different light. The teachings about equality before God, irrespective of social status or caste, resonated strongly with those who had long felt devalued in society. What was even more fascinating was how conversions were not only happening among those in lower classes. People from middle to upper classes also began to show interest in Islamic teachings. Some of them were young professionals, social activists, and even people working in the arts and culture. They began to feel that Islamic teachings offered a new perspective on life, teaching them to care more for others, uphold moral values, and avoid violence and injustice. As time went on, the wave of conversion spread further. In a mosque on the outskirts of Delhi, thousands of people gathered to recite the Shahada, declaring themselves Muslims. Even in small villages, similar scenes began to emerge. Not only that, several influential public figures started expressing their interest in Islam, further strengthening the belief that this movement was not just a temporary trend, but something much larger. For some, this phenomenon was seen as a sign of a profound change in India's social and religious structure. Mass conversions were not merely about changing one's faith, they symbolized a deep-seated dissatisfaction with the social injustices faced by many, especially those trapped in the oppressive caste system. Islam, with its emphasis on equality, opened opportunities for anyone to experience a more just and peaceful life. However, as more people converted to Islam, there were also those who felt threatened by this change. Political leaders, particularly from the Hindu community, began to sense that India, a country with a Hindu majority, might be on the brink of an unprecedented shift. Islam, once considered a minority religion, was now moving toward the potential to become a majority, creating significant tension. Behind all this, a deeper truth began to emerge: this change was far more than just a religious matter. It was a social movement involving shifts in how society viewed power, human rights, and the role of religion in their lives. This was not only about Islam, it was about the quest for justice and equality in a society long divided by the caste system, social differences, and inequality. For many in India, the year 2024 marked the beginning of a new era. An era that might bring division, but also open the path to unity in diversity. A wave driven by a desire for change, by hopes for a better life. This wave, which started with the quiet voices of youth, had now become a tsunami shaking the social foundations of the country. And in the midst of it all, India stood at a crossroads, ready to enter a new chapter in its history filled with uncertainty and hope. As the wave of change became more palpable, India, known for its cultural and religious diversity, began to divide. What started as a small movement had now become an issue sweeping across the entire country. The mass conversion to Islam happening in various cities and villages began to raise real concerns among the Hindu community. In markets, streets, and even in family rooms, discussions about these conversions became the main topic of conversation. The majority of Hindus felt threatened by the reality that Islam was rapidly growing. They asked, will we lose our religious dominance in our own land? These concerns did not only come from extremists but also from more moderate members of society who viewed religious diversity as an essential part of their national identity. In some regions, tensions began to rise. Protests and demonstrations from Hindu groups who felt threatened became more frequent. In major cities like Delhi and Mumbai, thousands took to the streets, holding banners reminding everyone that India is a country with a Hindu majority. They demanded that the government act swiftly to curb the spread of Islam, which they viewed as growing too quickly. The rise of vocal Hindu religious organizations further worsened the situation. They held large meetings, urging Hindus to preserve and defend their ancient traditions and religion. Teachings emphasizing the importance of maintaining Hindu identity in the face of the Islamic threat became increasingly popular among conservatives. However, the most concerning development was the spread of conspiracy theories circulating widely on social media. Some began to believe that there was a hidden agenda behind the surge in conversions. They spread rumors that foreign countries or certain groups were deliberately designing a strategy to transform India into a Muslim-majority country. This fear grew larger, deepening the rift between religions. On the other hand, the Indian government, led by the Hindu nationalist political party, found itself in a difficult position. They had to choose between supporting the Hindu community that sought protection or trying to maintain balance with the Muslim community, which felt resisted. On one hand, there was pressure to take stronger actions against the spread of Islam, while on the other, moderate and international groups pressed for no discrimination against religious communities. Bureaucracy and security forces began to get involved in handling the conflicts arising from these religious tensions. In some regions, clashes between Hindu and Muslim groups began to occur, sparking riots that intensified the volatile atmosphere. Small acts of violence broke out on the streets, and even some mosques and temples became targets for destruction by extremist groups who saw religious differences as enemies to confront. Beyond this political and social noise, the everyday lives of ordinary citizens began to be affected. Indians, who had once lived peacefully with friends and neighbors of different faiths, now started to feel divided. Daily conversations that were once filled with camaraderie were now filled with anxiety and uncertainty. Many began to withdraw from social interactions with people of other religions, feeling that keeping their distance was the safest way to protect themselves from the threat they perceived as real. Despite the increasing tensions, there were also groups attempting to counter the wave of hatred. Religious leaders, both from Hindu and Muslim communities, tried to remind society that this conflict would bring no good to anyone. They emphasized that India had long been home to many religions, and what had made India strong for centuries was its diversity, not its division. However, the voices of moderation were becoming increasingly faint amidst the rising roar of hatred. Moderate leaders often struggled to break through the flood of conspiracy theories that had permeated the minds of many. Although many tried to advocate for peaceful approaches, many felt that, at this point, survival and protecting their identity left them no choice but to fight back. Meanwhile, Muslims who increasingly embraced their faith felt they were living in a tension they had not chosen. They only wanted to live in peace, yet were often viewed as a threat. They faced the reality that, although the teachings of Islam they had chosen advocated for peace, the outside world viewed them with suspicion. The conversion, which for them was a path to peace, only seemed to worsen the existing conflict. The year 2024 became a time of great tension, where religious, political, and social identities merged into one. India, once so proud of its diversity, now faced a deepening division. People began to ask, will India remain a symbol of interfaith harmony, or will it become a battleground of never-ending ideological conflict? The growing tensions between Hindus and Muslims in India in 2024 ultimately led the nation to a decisive turning point. A society once proud of its cultural and religious diversity living in harmony began to feel that these differences were no longer a source of strength, but rather a potential catalyst for division. However, amid the heated and uncertain atmosphere, there remains hope that India can find its way back to unity. In various major cities, religious tensions erupted more frequently. Yet, moderate voices advocating for tolerance and harmony began to rise. Religious leaders and community figures from diverse backgrounds, both Hindu and Muslim, began speaking more openly about the importance of returning to the foundational principles that underpin the nation: unity in diversity. In Delhi, several well-known Hindu and Muslim religious figures, who had long known each other, held an open meeting at a cultural center. The event aimed to discuss ways to ease the growing tensions. one Muslim leader participating in the meeting said emphatically, "We are not here just to talk about Islam, but about how we can live together, respect each other, and find common ground in our differences." This message was met with applause from the attendees, but there remained skepticism among some who felt peace could only be achieved with great sacrifice. Meanwhile, within the Hindu community, moderate voices calling for an end to the spread of hatred also began to emerge. A Hindu priest who had long been active in interfaith work in India stated, "We must remember that we are a great nation because of our diversity. If we cannot uphold tolerance, we will lose what makes us strong." While many agreed with his view, they also recognized that the threat to Hindu identity still felt very real among many. However, despite the hopes from the moderate camp, many still felt that division had become inevitable. Extremist groups on both sides continued to escalate the situation with increasingly incendiary rhetoric. In some regions, sectarian violence erupted in the form of riots, attacks on places of worship, and even the burning of shops belonging to people of different faiths. Ordinary citizens, caught in the middle of this ideological battle, felt the significant impact of this division on their daily lives. In a small town in Uttar Pradesh, a Hindu man and a Muslim man, who had been friends for years, suddenly felt a deep divide between them. Despite living side by side for so long, the growing political and social tensions made them hesitant to continue their friendship. They exchanged messages filled with unspoken worries, realizing that their relationship might no longer be safe. However, one day, the Muslim man decided to visit his friend's house, bringing a traditional cake as a gesture of peace. This moment became a small but significant symbol of the possibility that, despite the tensions, love and friendship could endure, even in limited circumstances. On the other hand, the political leaders in power faced a great dilemma. The government, dominated by the Hindu party, which had previously sought to control the situation with a harsher approach to Islam, began to realize that these tensions were only worsening the situation. An intense debate took place in the Indian Parliament, where politicians from various parties, both Hindu and Muslim, discussed how to improve the situation. Some proposed a large-scale initiative to promote interfaith dialogue and peace programs involving youth from across India, aiming to break the cycle of growing hatred. However, despite efforts from the government and civil society, the reality remained harsh. Many people felt that the situation had become too complicated to resolve with mere words. They believed that concrete action, not just peace speeches, was needed. More inclusive social policies and increased attention to the welfare of marginalized communities became ever more critical in calming the widespread unrest. In the villages, community leaders played a pivotal role in maintaining peace. A Hindu village head and a Muslim mosque imam in a remote village in Rajasthan together organized interfaith meetings involving residents from various communities. Despite facing significant obstacles, they continued their efforts to preserve harmony. During the meeting, they spoke about the importance of mutual respect and reminded everyone that, in the end, they were all part of the same nation. The year 2024 may be recorded as a year of conflict and tension for India, but it also marks a turning point for many who still believe that tolerance and peace are the keys to a better future. Although there are still many challenges to face, the spirit of restoring unity and maintaining harmony in diversity remains alive in the hearts of many. Amid the turmoil, hope persists. For although differences may add to the tension, they can also become a source of strength if managed wisely. In India, known for its diversity, these moments of great tension may only be a phase that will eventually pass, leaving behind a valuable lesson on how to maintain peace amid differences.